Hey, Larken Rose here, and I have a thought experiment for you. So many political candidates and voters and stuff talk about these policies to help the economy and to create jobs and yada, yada, yada. So, here's the thought experiment. You have been chosen as the political and economic savior of a bunch of people. So you have a bunch of people. We'll make it an isolated case to make it simpler, where there's 1,000 people, 10,000, 100,000, whatever. Lots of people in a big area, and they already have a complex economy and specialization, and you can sort of choose what level of technology they're up to, like industrial age or modern stuff or whatever, and choose whatever size, and then they're already trading with each other, and they're already producing a bunch of stuff. They already know how to do that. There is no ruling class, so they all the way have free trade. Now, of course, some people are nasty and try to rob other people, and bad things happen and whatever. But then you come along, and some people say, we're doing pretty well. We have sort of a booming economy, and we produce a bunch of stuff, and we have all this technology. But we're wondering if you might be able to help us with our economy and help make things better. But the rule is, you're not allowed to have ideas for inventions. You're not allowed to create business. It's not your job to actually participate in voluntary trade. No, we need you to try to improve things by way of punching people in the face or shooting them. And that's the only power. That's the only thing you're allowed to exert on people, is you get to punch them in the face and or shoot people. That's all. Now, you can also tell them what to do. You can say, you're going to do this, or you'll get punched in the face. We'll give you a bunch of enforcers, the Department of Face Punching or something, and then the Department of Outright Murder. So those are your two departments, your two enforcement arms. And you can tell people what to do and what not to do. So you can look and say, well, I think you should be producing more of these. So I'm going to tell these people, drop what you're doing, whatever you were already producing, and focus on producing these. Or I'll have my enforcers come punch you in the face, or maybe shoot you. And do more of this, less of that, so you can boss people around any way you want. You don't get to do anything productive. You don't get to create any value, but you have to try to enrich this society as a whole by way of punching people in the face and or shooting them and bossing them around and telling them what to do. Because we've all heard, this economic policy of this party is really helping to create jobs and making a boom for the economy. Okay, well, in a very simplified, direct version of that, how would that work? How would you get government, basically somebody exerting violence over everybody else? How would that create prosperity? So what would you do in this little scenario? And you don't even have to go through Congress or any of that. You're just a benevolent dictator. Or maybe you're a malevolent dictator. Either way, you're a dictator. Your goal, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to make this overall society even more prosperous by way of punching people in the face and or shooting them. And you can tell them what to do and then punish them if they don't. So what would you do? They're already trading, they're already making different things, and of course the laws of supply and demand already apply, because that's just reality. If somebody says, we're going to focus entirely on making 8 gazillion widgets, but there's a really low demand and hardly anybody needs that, well, then they're going to go out of business. But you could come along and say, wait, I want to save that business. I want to help that business. So I'm going to tell everybody else, you have to buy widgets from them, and you'll be punched in the face. Anybody who doesn't buy widgets from them will be punched in the face. Great. Did that help? Well, that business now did a great job because they made lots of money, because now they're selling way more widgets to people who didn't want them and didn't value them, and it didn't improve their life. So it made all of those coerced customers poorer. You made them give up their money for something they didn't want. Now, the business did better. That one business did better, but society lost out, because they benefited as a result of you forcing those people to hand over money. Now, I have to throw this in. I've explained it a million times. A whole lot of people have explained this basic thing. When there's a voluntary trade of you buy something from somebody, by definition, it's a win-win. Because the fact that you chose to buy something from somebody, whether it's lunch or a car or whatever, that automatically means that you valued the thing you were getting more than you valued the money you gave up to get that thing, because you wouldn't have made the trade otherwise. You thought that was you profiting. You would rather have the thing you bought than the money it took to get it, the money you had to give up. And on the other side, they benefited too. They profited too, because obviously they more wanted to have your money than they wanted to have the thing they made. They made it to sell it, not to have a pile of widgets or cars or whatever. They made those things in order to get your money. So in a voluntary trade, both sides benefit, both sides are richer. It's not a zero-sum game, the silly pie chart socialist view of reality that there's just sort of a pie of wealth and it just randomly moves around in circles. No, wealth is generated when somebody makes something of value to somebody else, and that somebody else decides, yeah, I'm going to buy that. So, back to the widget company that makes widgets. When they were just selling a few to willing customers, all the customers, every time they bought a widget, benefited because the customers wanted to pay that money because the customers viewed it as, well, my life is a little tiny bit richer with a widget instead of the money I had to give up to get that widget. So they're all better off. And the people selling the widgets are like, well, good, we made money off of selling widgets. It's not like we're making widgets because we want a bunch of widgets. We're trying to run a business and make money. So we're happy because we benefited too. Both sides got richer. So that company and their customers actually enriched the society overall. So does everybody else in the society that's voluntarily trading and producing things of value, goods, services, whatever. But if you come along and say, well, I'm going to help that business by telling these people, I'm going to punch you in the face if you don't buy widgets. Okay, you helped them, but you made them less rich because you forced them to give up something they didn't want to give up. If they wanted to give it up, they would have bought it voluntarily. If they only buy it because you threatened to punch them in the face, it's because they valued the widget less than they value the money that you just made them give up to get a widget. So all those coerced customers are now poorer than they were before. So overall, you didn't add any value by doing that. Overall, you didn't add it to society. You basically just stole value from these people by force and gave it to those people. So, okay, that plan didn't work well. Well, what if you give incentives to businesses to do things that you think are more worthwhile? Let's say you think the new kind of widget is really valuable and really good. So you're going to say, all right, everybody, you have to chip in some money, like however many dollars each, or get punched in the face. And then I will invest that money in making new widgets. Now, right off the bat, you made them all poorer than they were before because you demanded money from them for, right now, nothing. They didn't get anything for it. You just stole their money to make a new special kind of widget. Now, if this new special kind of widget is something they then want to buy, you already stole their money. You already made them behind on the deal. Now, if the company sells them the new kind of widget and they buy it and they go, okay, this is cool, and they want to buy that, that's fine. But you still made everything slide backwards first by robbing everybody. And if you rob them all to make this thing and people go, we don't really like the new widgets, then not only did you steal their money, but you paid a bunch of people to produce something of little or no value. So you, not only did you just directly rob those people, but all those people who worked hard to make the new kind of widget that nobody wants because it's crap for one reason or another, or whatever reason the people don't want it, all that productivity, you basically used up the productivity of those people making something that nobody wants in a world where if you hadn't done that, those people would have been producing something that somebody else actually wants. So you didn't just waste their money, you wasted their productivity. Now, an oversimplified version of this can be, well, I want zero unemployment in my society. So all these people who don't have jobs at all, however many people that might be, I'm going to help that by demanding a bunch of money, by threat of punching people in the face, from everybody, rob everybody, and then I'm going to pay these people to carry rocks around in circles. Doesn't produce any value. It doesn't increase anybody's prosperity, doesn't achieve anything worthwhile, anything of value to anybody, but they get paid for it. Isn't that a good thing? Well, what actually happened? Did you create any new wealth? Well, no, you robbed everybody, and then you particularly paid these people to not produce anything of value. You literally paid them to be useless, carrying rocks around in circles. Nobody wanted that. Nobody would have paid for that voluntarily. So you didn't just extract stolen money from those people. You extracted the ability to be productive out of a bunch of people who are now wasting their time doing something useless. So once again, your thuggery made the whole game less rich, less prosperous. All your thuggery did was drop value. Now, there may be certain people who are like, well, I can carry a rock around in circles for a while, and now I get paid. Cool. Those people may have benefited from your thuggery. But the overall productivity, the overall prosperity, the overall existence of wealth, like stuff of actual value, went down because of your thuggery. Now, you can think of 57 other ways. Well, what if I did this? What if I did an incentive? And what if I robbed the people making too much money and gave it to the poor? Okay, that's just moving around the existing wealth. That isn't creating any new wealth. And your goal was not fairness. Your goal was to make the society more prosperous. I mean, that was the mission of this thought experiment, is to use basically coercion to make society more prosperous. Okay, well then, heck with being subtle about it. We're just going to enslave a bunch of people. We're going to take like 10% of the population and say, you're going to work really hard to produce a whole bunch of whatever, cars or houses or whatever. You're just 10% of the people are just directly going to be enslaved, but we're going to work the hell out of them. They're going to produce a bunch of stuff of value. Cars, houses, widgets, whatever. Look at all this wealth that they created. Okay, but that didn't just come from nowhere. You literally enslaved them, which means you stole their productivity. You basically stole their lives. You made it so they weren't earning any money doing things voluntarily, so you at least sort of indirectly stole the money they would have earned, and you stole their life and you enslaved people. But we're even setting aside sort of the morality of that. Even on a practical basis, morality out the window. Is there any way to use violence to make this overall society more wealthy and more prosperous? Did you add value? Well, yeah, now there's like widgets and cars and houses that wouldn't have existed otherwise. Yeah, but look how much you had to steal out of the economy. You stole the income they would have made. You stole the productivity. And then you have a bunch of things, and whether they're given away or traded, whatever, that's just a different way of you're moving productivity around and you're moving resources around. You didn't create any value. You also did something heinously immoral, but that's beside the point for this particular challenge. So, how would you do it? If there's a bunch of people already freely trading and voluntarily trading, and the laws of economics already apply, if somebody produces something nobody wants, and everybody goes, nope, I'm not going to buy that, the market punishes that person by, you didn't sell any, you didn't make any money. Oh, well, you'll have to try to find a way to make money making something that people want. So there's an incentive to actually create value instead of to create some bullshit that nobody wants. So you may have tried, you may have thought it was a good idea, and all your potential customers go, we don't really want that. Okay. They didn't lose anything. You were just over there trying to do something. You may have lost some time and effort trying to make some new widget that nobody wanted, but there's a very inherent, pretty damn quick correction mechanism in a free society where you lost. You didn't make something that was of value to other people, so they didn't give you their money. It's that simple. Now, if you find a way to make a new, even newer widget and people go, whoa, this is cool, this is helpful, a zillion people buy it, you enriched all of them and they all enriched you. Okay, but along comes you, the overseer thug. How are you going to make that even better? By way of punching people in the face and shooting people. Make them make more? No. Because demand will decide how much they make. We're going to make you make twice as many widgets than anybody actually wanted. Okay, you just stole their productivity, and you probably had to steal other people's money to make that happen, because you had to pay them something, so you robbed somebody to pay them to make more than demand was asking for. Now we have a surplus of widgets. Nobody wants them. Whoops. But don't worry. To correct that, we'll make these people buy this. Wait, there's two widget companies, and this one's sort of faltering because the other one's kind of out-competing it and making better products at a lower price. Well, that's not fair. We're going to come in and just shoot a bunch of people at the other business. Will that help this business? Because you just literally murdered their competition. Yay, this business is doing better. The people who work there, they're getting paid more. They're happier. The dead people aren't happier. The customers also aren't happier because you just eliminated their preferred choice of what they wanted to buy by way of violence. And now they have to buy something that they didn't really want as much as they wanted the thing that you just destroyed. Now, people who understand economics can understand, yeah, that's tariffs. That's international rules. That's, protectionist bullshit government violence saying, we're not going to let you buy that cheaper thing from those people on the other side of that line. Well, that punishes the customer, and it punishes the people on the other side of the line trying to produce something. Now, in that case, it's not just we're going to go murder the competition, but it's still we're going to use government violence to interfere with that. So, I want to see if anybody in the comments below can come up with some way in this scenario that coercive threatening of violence can overall make society more prosperous. Well, we're going to invest in infrastructure. First we rob everybody, and then we spend it on something we think they wanted. Well, automatically you lose, like in the game of trying to make everybody more prosperous. Because if they thought it was to their benefit to spend their money on that, they already would have. Whether individually or pooling their resources, and they all get together, hey, how much money do we need to build a bridge over this creek? Well, let's figure out what it is and figure out if the people want to voluntarily do that. Because if they don't, then by definition, adding a bridge with stolen money did not make them richer. Because if they viewed that bridge as being of more value than the money they'd have to cough up to make it happen, they would have done it voluntarily. If they did it by coercion, then if you did it by coercion, then by definition, they didn't value the bridge as much as they valued the money you stole from them, which means you made them poorer. You made society poorer overall with your thuggery. So I want to see if anybody below can describe any way, basically, in which government coercion can actually create prosperity. It can create jobs because we robbed these people and paid those people to carry rocks around in circles. Yeah, but that's stupid. It's stupid, immoral, and destructive to overall prosperity. Yeah, you made those people get some money for doing something that wasn't worth doing and didn't produce value that other people wanted to buy. They benefited, just like, the beneficiary of stolen goods. They can be happy about it. Yeah, the carjacker, it really helped my life when I became a carjacker. I have lots of free cars. Yeah, but you didn't produce value, you just stole somebody else's value. So I want to know if anybody can describe any way in which government coercion can be used to increase the prosperity of this little hypothetical society, increase their prosperity as a whole. I'm guessing nobody's going to, because it's utterly impossible. I mean, if you think you can, give it your best shot. Describe it. Let's hear it. But here's the thing. If that's utterly impossible, why does anybody ever believe it when any political parasite, Trump or the leftists or Republicans or moderates or anybody else, when any government comes along and says, we're going to create jobs and make this economy boom? Why does anybody believe that crap if you can't think of a single example of how force could be used to actually achieve that? Now, there's one thing government can do that actually benefits prosperity, which is stay the hell out of the way. And zero Republicans will suggest that. Zero Democrats will suggest that. Zero people running for office would suggest that, because why the hell would somebody run for office just to not use the power of that office? Government is always anti-freedom. It is always anti-prosperity of society overall. And if you disagree, I challenge anyone in the comments below to describe anything you could do by way of coercion that would make that little hypothetical society more prosperous overall by way of you punching people in the face and shooting people. Good frickin' luck. And if you can't, stop falling for all the BS about politicians having policies that they're just parasites and thieves. It is conceptually impossible, not just they never do it, it's conceptually impossible for government to enrich society. You cannot get prosperity out of violence.